Good afternoon, Mr. Goh. Welcome back.
Good afternoon.
Looks like you're having a good time today.
Yes, of course.
So, do you have time for a few questions from us?
Yes, I would be delighted to.
First thing, today we have a newspaper headline that says that if the coronavirus is going to stabilize, we're probably going to have an election in May. And there was citation of your speech in that headline. Do you have anything to say about it?
Well, of course, I say that it might backfire on PAP. The reason is very simple. Every human beings have this strange balance of feel of justice. When you go all out to play dirty or to play unfairly, to engage in injustice, I think everybody will feel angry. And people will know that to teach a lesson to those who actually think that they can get away with all these dirty tricks. That's my feeling.
Would you elaborate on what you mean by 30 tricks?
Well, I have already said that the Electoral Boundaries Review Committee can be renamed as Electoral Gerrymandering Committee. Basically, they have helped PAP in all sense to draw the boundaries all in favor of PAP. Whichever way we look at it, they are going to wipe off Workers' Party, they are going to prevent Dr. Tan Cheng Bock from getting elected, and they are doing all the Disappearing Act and Reappearing Act of SMCs and all that. I think that is unfair. A lot of people can see that it's totally unfair, right? And on top of that, they are going to call an election during a crisis, endangering people's life and curbing opposition effort, going for rallies, outreach to people to sell their messages. All these are very unfair to opposition.
So, do you think that if the election is going to take place, will rally be committed, notwithstanding that the coronavirus have stabilized?
What do you mean by stabilizes, first of all? Right? We already know from the expert, the threat will actually last for more than a year, right? More than a year. So whether it's being stabilized, there will be still infections, possibility of getting infected. Any reasonable person, responsible politician will not want to risk their own volunteers as well, the public, in the election. So even if they say, oh, you can have a mass rally, I don't think I want to have a mass rally as a responsible guy.
Malaysia have just announced that no Malaysian is supposed to travel out of their country or allow foreigners into their country. Averaging 300,000 Malaysians enter Singapore to work every day. Do you think our government agencies are able to house them if they're going to come in before the deadline starts?
I seriously doubt so they can do that, right? And we are very dependent on all these workers. All over the years we have been building up our economy based on the premise that foreign workers will always be there. And this coronavirus threat actually shows that, hey, you need to rethink about our economic strategies. I doubt so you can, all overnight, you are going to have, 300,000 dormitories for all these workers? I seriously doubt so. We will face a problem.
Many countries in the EU have shut their doors, from Italy to France, and even there are new cases every day, and the death is heading north. So, do you think the current measures from Singapore side is sufficient?
Now, I have read a report about this coronavirus. Once we hit the teens, that means in the tens, right, the trend is going to be exponential, and that is exactly what is happening in Europe as well in Malaysia. And I'm afraid that we are a bit too late for arresting this trend. But we have a saving grace. Malaysia is doing the right thing, despite of all the inconveniences. Right? They have cut us off right? Indonesia is already in the process of thinking of such measures. We have measures, very strangely, that we are going to cut off ASEAN, right? We have imposed a certain immigration restriction, but we start to see a lot of cases, imported cases from the American, but we have not imposed any immigration restriction on the Americans.
So, Mr. Goh, what is your view about the new boundaries that's been proposed by the Electoral Review Committee?
I think it's a perfect piece of gerrymandering. No stones are unturned. They have done all the calculations, a mix of different groups of voters, from age, social class, HDB class, strata class, as well as a mix of private estates. I think they have done a wonderful piece of gerrymandering for that. And of course, you can see that Workers' Party have raised the issue of the 3 SMC that they have worked so hard suddenly disappeared.
Our Prime Minister has said that he's going to step down after this election. Do you think he will totally extract himself from the political scene?
I would be very, very worried if he does step down right after the elections, because Heng Swee Kiat's performance is actually quite mediocre. He didn't actually foresee the fallout from the economy due to the coronavirus threat is so serious. He came up with a so-called 10 billion deficit, but only with 4 billion that is thrown into specifically measures to address the economic fallout. However, we have a 550 billion economy. So that is grossly inadequate. And now he's saying that we are going to have a ex-budget measures, right? I think that's a bit too late. A lot of businesses are closing down.
Now, Mr. Goh, our Minister of Health is being partnered by Mr. Lawrence Wong to combat this coronavirus. Why do you think we need 2 full-fledged ministers for this task?
Well, it's pretty obvious. Although they say they are co-chair, who is speaking more? Lawrence Wong. Gan Kim Yong actually has failed as a health minister, I would say. When we need social distancing, he is actually telling the Catholic Church that it's okay to resume Mass, which later have to stop. He is not doing his job proper, and he's not giving good advice, you know. So I think that is something wrong with him. He doesn't have good judgment. He doesn't have good acumen in the face of a crisis, and that is why Lawrence Wong have to come in to assist. In fact, Lawrence Wong is the anchor in the whole management committee, I would say. So he has to go. Seriously, he has to go.
Madam Ho Chin have made a Facebook comments regarding the scoldings of fellow Singaporeans who say, she specifically says that no one wants to contract the virus and the scoldings is unwarranted. What is your view about her Facebook post?
Well, in this rare instance, I have to agree with Ms. Ho Chin totally. Right from the start, did Gan ever tell people to do social distancing? Ever tell people not to share food without a communal serving cutlery? No. But he only fast very quick to accuse people of irresponsible gathering. But put it a fact, did he lead by example? Stop the Chingay parade. Stop the air show in the midst of a crisis. No. So how could you actually expect people, Singaporeans especially, who are so docile, always listen and follow what PAP government is saying, And these are all grassroots people, right?
Mr. Goh, many businesses are suffering. Many of we Singaporeans are now suffering. What do you think is going to happen if this coronavirus pandemic continues?
Now, I'm in the business of supplying to the food and beverages restaurant, tea, and many of my clients have a drop of revenue by 70% to 80%. And if this carries on without any help from the government, I can assure you, 70% of them will close shop. And not only the businessmen will suffer, all the workers will suffer. And a lot of Singaporeans are going to go jobless. And in fact, we are seeing taxi drivers even giving back their taxi. Hundreds of them. Why? They are losing money every day. That is the reason. Who don't want to work? But no one want to work to lose money. Precisely. So, Heng Swee Kiat, if your package, the second package that you come on, is not going to be a $20 billion package, then forget it. You are not going to address the problem. I will tell you why it's 20 billion. We have a over 500 billion GDP. If you inject 20 billion money, right money, you don't put into savings, you are going to have a velocity, monetary velocity of about 5. You will have about an impact of $100 billion impact on the economy. And that will cover 20% of the economy. And that is just nice. But less than that, you are not going to get any impact at all.
We are losing a lot in the tourist receipt because no one is arriving over here. Do you think it's about time we close our doors to foreigners now?
Well, it doesn't make a diff now, right? Our airports are so quiet. And in fact, all other countries are actually locking down. The Europeans, the Americans, right? Malaysia, and even Hong Kong are locking down. So we should actually practice the lockdown, bite the bullets. Right from the start, I have already said, bite the bullets, lock down for 1 month or minimum 3 weeks. And hopefully, we will turn it around. We will flatten the curve for the virus infection.
Last night after Malaysia announcement, we can see flocks of Singaporeans hogging food again. And this is the xia sui acts and attitude that some of our ministers is branding us. Do you think this is normal, this is human nature, or are we indeed the xia sui Singaporean?
I tell you what, because there's no clarity from the whole saga. If Singapore government, the PAP government have a better relationship with the Malaysia, even before they have these measures, right? We can actually come to talk about it, to make arrangement, and to announce together that there will be no disruption of supply, everybody will be okay. But this is not the case. The Malaysian government have unilaterally announced something without certain details because our Prime Minister didn't talk to them. It's only today when Prime Minister Lee called the Malaysian Prime Minister and come to terms that supplies will not be disrupted, then everybody feels safe. But before that, why? We have to go back to think, why did the Malaysian government did not consult us before they comes to this conclusion? This is something we have to address.
Mr. Goh, we noticed you have been reading a book by Ansel Adams. Is there anything interesting in this book that you'd like to share with us?
Well, it says something like this. The first sentence: if one feels inclined to embark on a journey into memory, after 82 years, the experience promises to be willfully colored. I've just passed my 50 years birthday. I would say we don't need to wait for 52 years, 82 years. Within my 50 years, my life is very colorful. Although I do not earn much, I'm not a rich man, but it's very colorful because I engage in the toughest job in the world, to be an opposition party member in Singapore. The type of difficulties that we face, persecution that you may not know. We are restricted in many ways. Right? I've been followed, I've been tapped, even my bank accounts have been monitored. Right? But I show you on. It is important because I believe we may be very successful in economics, but something is lacking. There is to build a democratic society, and we are lacking all the democratic principles within the system. Just like the Electoral Boundaries Review Committee, it is not independent. There's lacking of separation of powers that actually ensures checks and balances on the day of the government. And this is very worrying. We carry on like this, and we can see that the 4G leaders are actually at best average, right? To me, it's mediocre. They need somebody to keep them in check. We can only progress. We can only progress and be better with criticism and not sarcasm, and not people who are always throwing praises. A society cannot progress with all people who are clapping. It must have critics. And this is the role. I carry on until I'm tired. One day I will retire. But not now. Not now.
So, Mr. Goh, before we part way again, during this turbulent and challenging time, do you have any message and words for us Singaporeans?
We have come so far as an independent country. Our forefathers have put a lot of effort to build up the infrastructures, the economy, and prosperity. And for us, it is our duty alone to ensure the system doesn't collapse. The system works for the future generation. And the only way is to work to build a democratic society. And Singaporeans have to seriously think about it. In fact, with these impending elections, which is putting all the effort, all the obstacles towards this goal, Singaporeans should have the guts to tell PAP enough is enough. Now it is time to build out our democratic system, and we need opposition in Parliament. And please think carefully when you vote in this coming election.
Thank you very much, Mr. Goh. And on behalf of many Singaporeans, we wish you a happy birthday.
Thank you.